People tend to quit at really high points and really low points. One of our jobs as leader is to minimize our own highs and minimize our own lows.
Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast, a Ben Kinney training production where we discuss the concepts of health, wealth, leadership, and legacy. My name is Chad Himes, and I'm joined as always by my friend Bob Stewart. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Chad. How you doing, bud?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Waiting for those crazy words to come out of you here one of these episodes soon.
You don't want that.
Not today, that's for sure, Bob. I want you to quit talking about that stuff. As we segue here and bring in Ben Kinney joining us on this episode, Ben, we have people listening to the podcast that are being challenged right now. And a lot of people are thinking about quitting. They're thinking about they might quit this, they might quit that. There's that stress that's going on in the world where people are saying, that's it, I quit. So tell me, Ben, why is that happening?
You know, I'm getting the calls too, Chad, and the messages and conversations. And I think people are beat up a little bit right now. I think they're sitting back and saying, is any of this stuff even worth it? They're looking at the demise of a business or the demise of their career or the added pressure in their jobs, or they're sitting at home trying to homeschool children right now on top of running their business or doing their work remotely. Like there's a lot of pressures right now that's causing us all to question what's actually going on and what the rest of our life should look like. I said on one of our earlier podcasts that sometimes big events in our life happen, and we're definitely in one of those situations today. And this actually becomes an end of an era. It'll end the way that we've always done things. And the question that I keep presenting to people in our companies is, what will this ending now become the beginning of?
Right.
And in order for things to become the beginning of something, we're going to have to quit something.
Sure.
Which means there's probably two types of quitting, right?
Absolutely. So we've got this concept you have of good quitting and bad quitting. Why don't you tell us a little bit difference of this? Let's dive into bad quitting first. Break that down for us a little bit.
Bad quitting is caused by the same reason that good quitting happens. Because we have highs and we have lows in our life. We have highs and lows in our relationships. We have highs and lows in our finances. Mm-hmm. We have highs and lows in our company. We have highs and lows in our energy.
Our health, all of it, sure.
All of it, right?
Yep.
And when you get feeling super confident, right? Sometimes, hypothetically, we might get a little cocky, a little arrogant, a little too much confidence, right? And we quit really good things. And there's also times when things get really tough and we feel like we're failing. Our bank accounts are being attacked. Our businesses are being attacked. Our emotions are being attacked. Our health is being attacked. Our relationships, and we get to a really low point. People tend to quit at really high points and really low points. One of our jobs as leader is to minimize our own highs and minimize our own lows so that we can exist somewhere in the middle of this. If you could imagine a shape, it would look like a roller coaster where you're going up and you're going down. That's just what life is like. Bad quitting is when you start quitting things just because the going gets tough. Now, the problem with that, Chad, is that if you quit the wrong things, you can actually create a habit of quitting.
Interesting.
A habit of quitting says whenever this relationship is not going right, whenever the employee isn't perfect, whenever the business gets tough, I'm going to switch careers, right? I'm going to go apply somewhere else. I'm going to shut the business down. I'm going to start something new, right? We all have friends that have started 4,000 new things, and every year we're like, what you doing now? Right? Because it's always something new.
Right.
Well, they're just getting into a habit of quitting.
Instead of
creating a habit of perseverance.
Okay.
A habit of perseverance says that when the going gets tough, we double down and ask ourselves the question, is the outcome worth the hard work? Is the outcome worth the pressure? And many times in my life, the things that I never quit ended up being the best things in my life. When I pushed myself when things got tough and I continued to show up, even when I didn't want to, right? That led to where I'm at today. And I'm so grateful for the times of my life that I decided not to quit.
And anybody can develop this habit of perseverance, as you're talking about, over time, as habits take time to develop. Yet let's dive into why we quit. So, Bob, I know Ben has a belief of a few different reasons of why we might quit on that negative side of this bad quitting. Let's go through that a little bit.
So the first one that you talk about, Ben, is results. We quit because, we get into some period where maybe our results are diminishing or they're just lacking or we're not hitting our number. But just talk through a little bit about the idea of like people quitting around results.
Yeah, we quit around results. Maybe the number one reason, because we aren't getting what we thought we were going to get out of these activities or out of this business or out of this relationship or out of this newfound wealth or money. And then what happens is we start to blame other people. We blame a virus. We blame our customers, the company we work for, our boss. We blame the economy, the president. Like we come up with all these different places to put our blame on instead of holding a mirror up. Remember that while we're failing, there's examples of success all around us. Warren Buffett said the greatest distributions of wealth happen in down markets, not up markets.
Right.
Because certain people win when other people are losing. In fact, winners count on the rest of them quitting.
I was just talking to a friend of mine last night. He works at a flooring distribution company and their business is being hammered right now. But I asked him, I said, how's it going? And he said, the guys that own the company, two guys named Mark and Owen, he's like, things are actually okay here. Immediately, Mark and Owen shifted our business into safety masks and disinfectants. And we just like transitioned our business. So they didn't let the economy or the virus or be this thing, right? They just said, we're going to keep doing this and we're not going to quit, right? They still sell flooring on the side, but they found a way to get different results, right?
Yeah, they pivoted.
They pivoted.
Yeah, fast enough. The other problem with the results, and people are going to see this, especially in the year 2020, is they're going to realize that the reason they're having a bad fall, a bad September, October, November, is because of how they behaved during the spring. Remember, the seeds you plant in the spring are the fruits and vegetables that you harvest in the fall. And our lack of activity, our lack of action today, even if we survive this with a good attitude, is going to cause the following months for us to look up and say, gosh, I'm working so hard right now, but I'm not getting any results. We're going to forget it's because we didn't do crap for 30 or 60 days prior in March and April and May because we dug and put our heads into the sand, right? We have to understand where our lack of results is coming from. Otherwise, as you move to do something else, you're just going to have the same problem over and over again. We have to ask ourselves the real question, why is it that I'm struggling getting results today?
Okay.
What am I doing right now that's going to dig me out of it? The tough part, it's going to be 3 to 6 months before you see the results of you changing your behavior, which means you got to look backwards 3 to 6 months to understand why are you in the position that you're in today.
Which means I'm going to change to get some results, just to probably have to change again as the whole world is changing around us every 3 to 6 months right now, probably as we adjust.
Yeah, you got to change and you got to focus on results. Results will lead to you having a high energy and you not doubting yourself and to you not having to be forced into a position to decide that I need to quit today.
Has there ever been a time where you've thought like, man, I'm doing the action, I'm doing the activity, I'm not getting the results I want, and you kind of had to make this decision like, I either need to do something else or maybe I'm just really close, right? And if I just keep pushing, I'll finally get those results I expected. I feel like a lot of people come to that crossroads where they have to make a decision. Do I keep doing this thing, right? Or do I good quit? right? Like, have you ever found yourself at a time like that where you just pushed through, even though you didn't know it was the right decision, but you just kept going?
Was it like a Greek myth or whatever about the person who had to push the big ball up the hill? Right? I can imagine this person pushing this gigantic stone ball up a hill. Now, what happens when you get to the top of the hill? It's fine. It's no longer hard. In fact, on the backside of the hill, it actually becomes really easy. I wonder how close people have been in their careers to getting to the top of the hill and enjoying the ride of the backside of that hill. And if they could just sit back and look and see how close they were, maybe they wouldn't have made that decision to quit. They were right there. They were just right freaking there.
And very good, Ben, because it is a Greek myth that you're speaking of there, that everyone can go find the story of Sisyphus, who you're speaking about.
Sorry, first Sisyphus?
Sisyphus.
Oh.
Not first Sisyphus. That would be another episode. So, Ben, you were talking about winners and losers earlier in this conversation. Wouldn't you agree that that's saying the same thing as maybe winners and quitters? Wouldn't a loser be someone who just quit too soon, possibly?
Maybe, as long as they didn't quit the right thing. Sometimes winners are the people who quit so that they can start going a different direction. Imagine if you were never strong enough to ever get that ball up the hill, and you spent your whole life trying to push a ball up a hill, right? Like me trying to be an Olympic runner, right? I could do that my entire life, right? And I will never get a gold medal. It's not for me, right?
Just build a pulley. You could have built a pulley, right? To help pull that thing up instead of just trying to keep pushing it up.
Yeah, I needed to quit and go try something else.
All right, Ben. So we had a lack of results was a reason people quit on the bad side. What else?
You know, I've seen this in my own life and in my business partners and people that I coach and mentor a lot. One of the biggest reasons that I think people quit is because they get lonely. It's most likely one of the most unrecognized causes for people wanting to quit is they're standing out there making decisions on their own, dealing with the pressure on their own, and they go and they retreat into their own self-talk. They start believing that the whole world is against them. We start thinking that nobody else has the same problems as us. And we start using these reasons as validations why we should quit. And here's the real honest truth. If you asked me, Ben, have you ever wanted to quit? Yeah, last week. And then the week before, and then the month before, and then 6 months prior to that. I want to quit all the freaking time because this is hard.
Sure.
And it's lonely.
Yep.
And sometimes I don't get the results that I thought I was going to get. And I'm frustrated and I'm impatient, right? There's all these reasons. And what we have to understand is you're not alone.
And as we're talking about this, Ben, I'm hearing you're not just talking about our business. Like, this is why people might quit a relationship. They start to feel lonely in that relationship because they're not connecting with their partner, whether it's a business partner or a relationship partner. You're not just talking about we quit our business opportunities. Loneliness is just something that'll help us quit anything.
Absolutely. Good point.
Okay, so talk a little bit more about that loneliness in the situation that you found yourself in the past that's made you want to quit. How do you overcome that without getting into the good quitting? We're going to cover good quitting later. Yet, how do you fight through that loneliness?
I found myself in a challenge where, as a leader of a company, and I'm sure there's many people listening to this podcast that are in a position of leadership, that they feel alone. And they feel that their problems are unique and that nobody else has their problems, and that their spouses, their partners, their children, their employees, they don't understand what that person is going through. Imagine if you own a business. Nobody in the business understands what it's like to make payroll other than the owner.
Sure.
That is a tough position to be in. So in order for you to not feel lonely in those positions, you have to go outside your company or your industry or your community or your state or maybe even your country, depending on how big or how different your business is, to find other people that are standing in similar shoes.
Because that restaurant owner right now, maybe who's having trouble making payroll, feels lonely in their company, yet the restaurant that's right next door to them in the shopping plaza is probably going through the same exact thing. They could connect so that they find a way to not be alone.
Yeah, and I've started doing this recently. As we go through this virus problem, I just started reaching out to other CEOs of similar companies and just asking them, what are you doing? What are you focused on? What changes are you making? And they've given me a lot of great ideas. And in return, I've been able to give them a lot of great ideas. And one of the coolest parts is I left the call rejuvenated, not thinking that I'm the only person in the world that has these fears or has these issues or these concerns or these pressures or these stresses or these frustrations, right? And I felt like if Chad and Bob can deal with this, I can deal with this, right? And you start looking out and saying, all right, it's kind of like you're going for a run. Now you're running with other people. You're like, well, if Chad is going to give up, I'm not going to give up.
Sure. Okay. So we've talked about results. That's one reason people quit for a bad reason. They're not getting the results they want. And we talked a little bit about how they can do that, get better results. We've talked about being alone is one of the reasons. What else comes to mind, Ben, when you want to talk about reasons people quit on the bad side of quitting?
I think a lot of times people get into a position where they're deciding to quit because they're trying to solve internal issues with external solutions. If I just change jobs, or if I just change industries, or if I change my company, or if I change my relationship, then I'll finally be happy. Then things will start going better in my life. But really, it's just going to resurface because it's an internal issue. They have an internal happiness issue or an internal self-worth issue, or they got into this habit of quitting and they're starting to point their fingers all around and saying, that's why if I just change this, which in the short term, it actually works, right? Everybody has a honeymoon for the first year they start dating, but they realize that every relationship is work and they have to continue to pour into it. Otherwise, they're going to be in that cycle. Every business that you start sucks, right? It's always hard. Every new job sucks. Half of your bosses suck. Your employees suck. Like you get into this position where you're like, gosh, this is freaking hard. And you start trying to solve that problem with change. And you can't. You have to change what inside you is making these situations. What inside you is causing you to feel like this is hard, or your employees are difficult, or your boss is difficult, or this business is too hard, right? If you change your internal thoughts and you start focusing on improving yourself, you might be able to work your way through a situation where you might have wanted to quit.
It's like, I think most people can relate to this in relationships, right? Like and I'll admit, before I met my wife, I always thought it was them, right?
It's always them, Bob.
She's crazy. She's this, she's that, right? And the reality was, I needed to work on me.
Yeah, you were the only constant in all of those relationships.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to take those same internal issues to the next relationship and then try to solve that relationship or make that relationship better without actually solving the internal issue that was causing that thing to come up every time, no matter who it was.
So it causes you to keep quitting. Yet, Ben, what you're saying is we need to face those internal issues to put ourselves in a position where that's not the reason we're falling into the habit of quitting. We need to address ourselves first.
I read a book last summer called The Enlightened Gardener. And The Enlightened Gardener gave me an analogy that's stuck with me ever since I read it. And it said, Bob, if you were to take a bucket, like a plastic 5-gallon bucket, and you were to fill that bucket with water, what shape would the water be in?
Be in the shape of the inside of the bucket.
The shape of the bucket, right? In our life, we have the same thing. And one of those things is our thoughts. Our thoughts, the internal dialogue in our head, actually becomes the bucket. So what fills the bucket is our life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We start having these thoughts about everybody's against me, or I'm not going to blah, blah, blah. And we start seeking justification and finding proof of that. And our life actually becomes an example of it.
And everything we stuff in that bucket takes the shape of our thoughts. I mean, social media is the great, exaggerator of this, right? Or just the internet in general. I can go in and if I got a thought in my head, I can find the justification for it, right? I can start
Coffee's
stuffing
good,
a bunch
coffee's bad. It's
Yeah.
whichever one you want, you'll find
I
it.
start stuffing a bunch of stuff in my head and it fits the shape of whatever I decided, whatever my thought was going in. Yeah.
And those are internal issues. And if we don't solve the internal thought issues, that internal dialogue, that mindset, this is going to continue to become an issue no matter what you have to deal with. And you're going to get into the habit of quitting. The last one that I think we should talk about today is boredom. One of the reasons that people quit is they get bored. They don't understand that truly successful people hit the same nail on the head every single day, 40, 50, 60 hours a week for a really long period of time. I always wondered what it would be like to be like think of a 80s song.
An 80s song?
Yeah, just think of a song. Just think of one like that's
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun.
Eye of the Tiger,
Eye of
he's
the
singing
Tiger.
for you.
Eye of the Tiger. That's perfect, right? Imagine being Survivor and you create this hit, Eye of the Tiger, and for the rest of your life, no matter where you frickin' go, you have to play Eye of the Tiger,
Yeah.
right? Ever since Rocky came out,
Yeah.
you've only been able to play Eye of the Tiger. And you can think of 100 other examples.
I worked with David Cassidy, and there was nowhere that he could go that he couldn't do. Come on, get happy.
That's what happens. And you end up in this opportunity for success, but it's boring. You got to say the same thing over and over again, right? How many one-liners have you heard me say for the 4,000th time? Don't answer.
But if Survivor showed up and I came to their show and they didn't play Eye of the Tiger, they're getting booed off stage, right? So they go try something new. They quit playing Eye of the Tiger because they're bored by it. And all of a sudden they don't deliver the same way.
Yeah. When they had something good going on, right? And you see that when people pivot from, I'm tired of playing football to now I'm going to be a baseball star or a golfer or a basketball one. And, they had something really good going. And that happens. In business, it happens all the time. I'm tired of calling customers. I'm tired of making sales. I'm whatever. Well, that's what success is.
It's the shiny object syndrome, that magic bullet, people looking for just the easy way to stop doing what's worked this whole time.
Yeah, it's creativity over models and systems.
Right.
The entrepreneur. I hate the word entrepreneur, Chad, because statistically, entrepreneurs fail 90, 95, 97% of the time.
Okay.
Who would sign up for failure? Like, I'm not signing up for failure. I want a model, right? I want to know that 99% of the time, I'm going to be successful. That would be the difference between buying a McDonald's franchise, because you know that 99% of them are profitable and successful, compared to like starting your own. I would rather go out there and find a model or a system so I don't have to be creative and just find a way to be okay with the boredom.
And Bob, has there been an episode where we haven't heard a model or system from Ben? I mean, isn't there a model or system that comes in almost everything that we've been covering in these episodes?
Yeah. He's just an average guy. And he'd be the first to admit, Ben, I think you'd be the first to admit, like, you've had extraordinary results through those models and systems.
And some you created yourself, some you are indeed, and some were just laying there for you to follow. You just didn't care about the boredom. That was never a reason for quitting.
So if you're sitting in a position where you're thinking, gosh, should I quit? I want you to ask yourself a question. Is it because I'm not getting results?
Yep.
And is that because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
Is it because I'm lonely? I'm trying to do this alone. I need a coach or a mentor or a partner. I don't need to quit. I just need somebody to walk with me for a while. Or is it because I have internal issues in my relationships or my health that I'm making now a business problem? Or I have mental issues or thought issues or thinking issues that's going to continue to come up in my life? Or am I just simply bored and I'm looking for a distraction? Think of these as reasons why you quit when you don't have to. And if you can identify one of these reasons, maybe you'll slow down for a little bit, think about it before you give up something that's really good.
And now quitting can become persistence. We can change that habit and we can push through to get the results we truly want. So we're not alone. So we're not bored because we're getting the results that we wanted through all of this.
I can pick somebody out of a crowd, Chad, that says, hey, I'm thinking about quitting or doing something else. I guarantee you they're lonely. They have issues outside of business, like a relationship or a health or emotional, mental kind of problem going on, or they're not getting results. And because of that, they're looking for an easy way out.
Okay. That's one side of the coin. Let's flip that coin over. And obviously, Bob, opposite of bad quitting would be
good quitting. And I mean, sometimes you probably should quit, right? Or there's a reason to quit something, like you said, because that next opportunity is there. But so talk a little bit about the idea of a good quit.
You know, when you study business, you see examples of people making great decisions and people making bad decisions. When I think of a bad decision, I think of Blockbuster. I heard somebody say the other day that Blockbuster didn't fail because people stopped watching movies. Think about that statement. Blockbuster didn't fail because people stopped watching movies. Blockbuster failed because they didn't evolve to find a new way to deliver their product or service.
Which is amazing. They were the largest franchise in the United States of America at one point, and now look at them.
You can't look at them. They're gone.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I have a special place in my heart for Blockbuster because one of my very first jobs was at Hollywood Video, where I had to wear the bow tie and the cummerbund and my tuxedo shirt every day.
Yeah.
So I love the movie store. I'm a movie lover. But they failed because they didn't evolve. There's a bunch of businesses right now that in order for them to survive this economic and this social disaster that we're in, they're going to have to quit doing certain things and evolve. Bob talked about it with the company that's now making masks and other things, right? Yeah. They had to quit what they were making prior to evolve into this new thing.
Right.
Now, if you study other businesses like Apple, you know, Steve Jobs was famously quoted as saying, innovation is saying no to 1,000 things. In order for them to be successful, they had to get rid of 330 different SKUs of random products that nobody really used.
When he came back, he did that, right?
Exactly.
When he returned, he just cut off all that other garbage they were working on and focused them on
2 or 3 things that had a couple of varying product lines from it, right? He went from 330 SKUs down to 10 or 12. He quit a whole bunch of things to make room in his life and his business and his company, right, for the things that we really should focus on. And there are things that we need to quit. Relationships that are never going to get better.
Yep.
Investments that are never going to rebound.
Smoking.
Right? Yeah. Health decisions. When I think about investments, I remember this old Charles Schwab commercial that said, waiting for a stock to rebound is not long-term investing. Sometimes you should have sold it and put that money into something else. Right? Warren Buffett said, sometimes your time would be better spent finding a new boat than trying to continue to bail out the one that you're in, right? There is times that we should quit, but you need to sit down and look at the pros and cons. Look at your alternatives. Look at your goals, your dreams, and look at the impacts on your health and your finances, your faith and your relationships, and make the decision.
And make sure it's not one of the bad reasons that you talked about before, masked underneath everything.
We just posted an episode called No Regrets. Ask yourself the question, in 5 years, 3 years, or 10 years, are you going to regret walking away from this business, this job, this career, this relationship, this community, whatever it is you're considering quitting, or not? And if you're not going to regret it, take a chance, quit it, move on. If you are, double down, give it a little bit more time, work a little bit harder, focus on boredom, being okay, focus on getting results as quickly as possible, find somebody else to walk with so you aren't doing it on your own, and fix your internal issues instead of searching for external solutions.
Can always go back and find episode 24 Ben was just mentioning, which is living a life with no regrets. And we really thank you for sharing that one. We know it was really personal, some of the messages that you shared on the anniversary of your mother's passing when we actually put that one together. All right, so as Ben has talked about good quitting and bad quitting and all the reasons that are in there, Bob, what's your takeaway from this conversation that we just had with Ben?
I think we need to really understand like why we're quitting this thing. right? Like just it boils down to like, is this the right decision? And then just trying to really understand the root of why you're quitting. And if you can get to the root of why you're quitting, you can understand it, you can make a more, informed decision on whether you should or shouldn't quit. But if you're just, if it is an internal issue and you can't get to the root of that internal issue, quitting this thing, it's going to just perpetuate that issue to the next thing that you go off and do. So to me, it's about getting to the root, right? And understanding some of those reasons why we quit, and then realizing like, am I doing it for this reason? And maybe the answer is, yeah, and geez, I shouldn't be quitting this thing. Or maybe it's a good quit, right? And it's something that you're actually going to get a benefit from quitting. So just understanding why we quit.
Don't justify the quitting. Look into why you're quitting and then accept that it's a good or it's a bad quit.
Right, because if you're just looking to justify it, you're just filling up that bucket, right? With
there you go.
The thoughts in the shape of the bucket. Yeah.
Great point, Bob. All right, so we hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we want to remind you that you can always visit winmakegivepodcast.com, because we want to let you know you can click on Ask Ben Kinney. That's right. We can take your question to Ben and turn it into a future episode. You could visit winmakegivepodcast.com and click on the Ask Ben Kinney opportunity. Or you could join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/winmakegive. And you can always post a question in there that we can turn into a future episode. We want to remind you, make sure that you've subscribed. We're going to ask you, give us a rating. Leave us a review, and don't forget to share your favorite episodes with your friends. And until our next episode, always remember, wash your hands and remember to do good.